Okay, I think we're ready to roll. So welcome everybody to our Notarylite meetup, where we've taken the idea of meeting in live gatherings for networking and exchanging of ideas to the video conferencing format. And that way we can continue the conversation. So one, I thank you all for joining me and those who will be coming on the call as we get going. Today, we have some special guests, but first I'd like to introduce my colleague, my friend, and my collaborator today, Bill Soroka, who is the creator of Sign and Thrive and best-selling author, Become a Six-Figure Notary. It is possible. Bill and I will be monitoring when I have my guests talking the chat room. And if you need clarification or a follow-up question to what they're talking about, the chat room is where I'm going to ask you to put that. And if we see something that would be better for us to stop and address, we will. But there will be an open Q&A at the end where you can actually ask questions. I have up to 5 panelists if they all found us this morning, and they all have something in common. They are doing RON assignments on different platforms. They're in different states. And what I wanted to have happen today is have an opportunity for those who do the work, because I'm in California and I cannot do the work, to tell us some things about that. And I chose some questions based on what I see in the forums that people want to know. So I'm going to call out a name, and if you are on the call, this is to check that you're with me so I know. All right. So first of all, Bill Bumfrey, if you can unmute yourself. Hi, thank you. You're on the call. Bill, would you tell us who you are, where you are, and the platforms that you're dealing with that you'll talk about later in the call?
Sure. I'm Bill Bumfrey. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, although I guess anywhere in the world for the purpose of this. I work on DocVerify. I'm also qualified to work on Pavaso and Notarize. So those are the 3, but I have the most experience on DocVerify.
Great. We will be excited to talk about all of that. And then Phyllis Traylor, I think you're on the call somewhere. Good morning,
Hi.
Phyllis. Hi.
Hi, I'm here.
And
Hi,
Phyllis, where are you and what are you doing?
Hi, my name is Phyllis Traylor, and I come from beautiful San Antonio, Texas. And I am working on, actually, I've kind of put a hodgepodge of services together to create a platform because I didn't want to pay the platform prices. So I'm using Adobe Acrobat with Zoom and a EVS to actually identify the signers, and Vimeo to store the videos, and Airtable to create the record.
Okay. Fabulous. Phyllis, you will also be helping us understand a little bit more about what happens with these calls. Is Cynthia Alexander, are you somewhere on the call yet today? Cynthia. Now she's in Florida, so it's pretty early for her.
Oh, no, it isn't. I've been up since 5 o'clock.
Later. Cynthia, is this you?
Yes, it is. It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
Right.
No, you want to see a picture of me?
It
no.
has.
I'm having a bad hair day and I'm not showing a picture.
Not showing a picture. Well, it's okay. I'll take your voice, Cynthia. Tell us.
All right. I'm gonna show a picture quickly so that people can see that it is me. Hi, okay. Hi. Okay. Now, no more. Okay. Anyhow, I actually have 2 different perspectives on how I actually am able to do. I am actually a RON provider in the state of Florida. I'm one of 6, as well as a RON. So I am on both ends of the spectrum. And I actually chose DocVerify, and that's the only one I'm working with. And I've actually done wills, power of attorneys, closings, and everything with that service. And later on, I'll tell you why I chose DocVerify, and we'll go from there.
All right, Cynthia, thank you. And I'm so glad you were able to join us today. And Deshauna Scott. Deshauna, did you find us on the call?
Hello, everyone. I am here. Good
Hi,
morning,
Deshauna.
good afternoon to some of you guys. So I'm coming to you guys from Richmond, Virginia. I've been running with Notarize since 2016 and here recently with Doc Verify. So happy to be on the call and happy to share.
Thank you very much. And Valerie Dennis. Valerie, where are you?
I'm right here. I'm in Austin, Texas, right up the street from Phyllis. I have been commissioned as an online notary since last summer. I jumped into this pool when it looked like all of the mortgage companies and the title companies were like, oh, we got to do these digitally. I currently use the platform SignIX, and I have previously used Doc Verify. And I also am Pavaso e-notary and Ron certified. And my motto is Ron is on.
I like that. That is so cool. Well, these are my special invited panelists today who from real experience will be talking to us about things we all want to know, right? Inquiring minds want to know. Just so you know, it's not that I don't know anything about Ron. I have been taking the certification class for Florida and for non-state specific. I have been Pavaso certified as well. I used Doc Verify for practice work for about a year so I could navigate their system and try to figure it out. I did not have a lot of luck there, so I ended that relationship. But it doesn't mean things may not have changed. So I do have a little bit of understanding of what's going on, but I thought who better to speak up about what's happening and how they deal with things that come up than somebody who's doing the work every day. So I'm gonna be asking, and my panelists know what I'm gonna be asking them about, hiccups that happen through the ID disqualification, through the KBA process, credential analysis, technical issues like drop connectivity in the call, emphasis on prepping documents and tagging documents, and what does that mean? Who's paying who, and is it through the platform, outside the platform? Who's the payer? Who's really hiring you? And who's uploading those documents? These are all different questions that you're not going to hear about necessarily in just training. That's platform, specific. So my first question, remember, if you do have questions and you're not one of my panelists, the chat room is where you can post that. Question one for all of my panelists, and then I'll reach out to you. Before documents can be remotely notarized, who's responsible for prepping documents for completeness, checking on notary certificates, tagging for signatures, and about how much time do you think you have to spend on that? And would you clarify if you're talking about NSA versus trust work or some other work? And Dushana, would you like to start? You'll unmute yourself.
Sure, I will start. As far as the Doc Verify platform goes, and this is traditional notary work. This is not mortgage docs at all. Basically, it's the notary's responsibility to do that. What I typically do is have the customer send me the documents before their appointment time so that I can review the document. I can go through and see what needs to be done prior to the appointment. And when I meet with the customer, the document is already uploaded and tagged. We know what needs to happen and we sign. So that way it saves on time and everything is already prepped.
All right, thank you. And Bill, I don't see you, but I know you're here.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, so do you want to talk a little bit about the documents?
Well, I get them from a couple different places. I do the loan signing as well as estate planning stuff. And I always tell my people, because I'm on Doc Verify and sometimes you need a little bit more time to get things aligned, that especially attorneys, I tell them, hey, I want to have the documents at least a day in advance so that I have time to get them uploaded so that I can send the invitation to the signers. It gives me a chance to go in there and put all my notarial language as far as state of Nevada, county of Clark, the date, because the more you can do in advance, as opposed to doing on the fly in Doc Verify, the better off you're going to be, because it's very difficult to tell when you're actually in the system where things are going to show up. So I try and do it in advance as possible and have as much done as I can before I get into the actual call, so that when we're in the call, it's just sign here, sign here, sign here.
And Bill, is that NSA mostly that you're doing, or are you mostly doing outside of that? Are you working with signing services?
I'm doing a little bit of both. I'm working with ServiceLink, and then I have a couple of attorneys that I work with. I do some general stuff. I don't do a lot, just because it doesn't, for 1 and 2 signings, 1 and 2 signatures, it takes just as much work as it would for a larger package. And it doesn't cost me any more on Doc Verify, at least, to have 1 signature or 100 signatures. So I try and push towards getting the larger packages.
Okay, great. Phyllis, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yes, and somebody asked a question about a Texas certificate, so I will address that too. So most of the work that all of the work that I do is general notary work. I work with individuals, and I also work with attorneys, and I am responsible for prepping the documents when I'm working with the individuals. Now with the attorneys, I just send them to the Texas Secretary of State's website for online notarizations, and then they can select which certificate they want to add to the document. Got that idea from Valerie. So that they can already have the correct certificate attached to the document, because our documents need to state that it is an online notarization. And if it's a long acknowledgement, you have some other verbiage that needs to be in there. Now, if I'm working with an individual, working with Adobe Acrobat is very easy to add that information to the certificate. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I use Acuity Calendar. So with Acuity Calendar, I have it set up on my website, so they can actually go to my website, make their appointment, and the Acuity Calendar has an intake form that I created. So they can answer all the questions about that. I have like a list of questions they have to answer about that appointment. And I set the time where they cannot make same day appointments. They have to make appointments at least a day ahead of time. And when they make their appointments, they have to also upload their documents in PDF format. So I have all that information in there so they know what to expect. And that's how I do it.
Thank you, Phyllis. And
You're welcome.
Cynthia? Go ahead and unmute yourself, Cynthia.
Okay, well, basically, I do something very similar to what they do, but I'm getting my sources from a lot of different places. I'm also a nationwide loan closing service, so I'm actually giving run out to some notaries as well. But what's really good about, and I use Doc Verify, and I'll tell you why I chose Doc Verify. The upfront money, it scares the daylights out of people, because you got to pay the $200 to actually get your certificate, and your setup and everything. It costs $200, and you can either pay $10 to $50 a month. I would suggest you get at least the $50 a month, because then you get all of the bells and whistles. The good part about that is if you get the $50 a month, it costs you $1.62 per notarization. That includes you, the notary, and the person that's notarizing. Now, if you know this person and you can say personally known, you don't have to pay the extra $2. But a standard notarization would cost you $5. Then you can notarize as many as you need in that package. It can be a complete closing or whatever, but I have a platform that I use where all my docs go there anyway, because I work with title companies. But another thing I do, I actually, with the personal ones, I do POAs, I will do wills and all the different things. And I charge a reasonable price, because the thing of it is we can charge up to $25 in the state of Florida. I charge $15. By the time I get through paying for the 2 things that you have to do and the notary, it costs me $4.70. So I only make like $10 on it. But in this day and age, with everybody, so many people out of work, you've got to actually make your prices so that John Q. Public can afford it. So, but if you pay by the year, then it only costs you $1.35 for each person. So that's why I pay by the year. I do seller packages, I do closings, and I had stopped doing closings because, you know, what I do as a notary processor and all that other good stuff. But now it takes me about 20 minutes. I do a closing. So I do the POAs and the extra stuff to help people out. But I got something really great, and I suggest that everybody do, like for the county, each county or city or whatever, when the people are becoming, they're getting jobs with the various corporate for the county and the city, all those things have to be notarized. So if you talk to them, give them a great price. All these you will have, and I use Calendly. Your calendar will be full. Every 15 minutes, you're making 25 whatever dollars per 15 minutes. So you're sitting at home having a great time and you're making money, but you're also helping someone.
Thanks, Cynthia. You got a lot going on there. Valerie?
Hey, well, the question about before documents can be remotely notarized, who is responsible? In the general notary work with the independent notaries, such as myself with SignIX, or most of the people using DocVerify, the notary is traditionally required to prep the documents. I'm kind of a stickler for the certificates, you know, Phyllis mentioned them. And if I'm getting work from a law firm, I won't take the documents without the correct certificate. And then I just go in before I upload them and edit, adding dates and, you know, the fill in the blank kind of things, because they really don't look pretty. Once, you know, Phyllis's probably look a lot better than the ones from SignIX or DocVerify. And so I try to get as much done before I upload it. And when I get documents with the correct certificate, it takes 5 minutes to prep them, get them uploaded, and tag them. If I have to fix certificates, it can take, you know, 10 minutes. And I've done 1 to 15 documents. So I do a lot of the trusts out of California, and I've been hired very often by an oil and gas law firm. So I'm doing a lot of leases. But it is typically in the general notary work, it's 100% the notary's job. In loan closings, from what I understand, it's usually tagged by your hiring entity unless you're doing it independently. Texas has a tax loan, which is 30 pages, and I do those myself because there's 5 notarizations. But I don't think I'd want to be responsible for tagging a complete refinance.
Valerie, when you talk about editing and correcting certificates or adding certificates, where are you doing that? Outside of the platform?
Outside of the platform, I have an old hinky editor that I use to edit PDFs, but a lot of my lawyers will send me the Word document so I can get the right certificate. If I look it up and look at it and it's an acknowledgement, I just match it with the Texas online acknowledgement. But you know, when I finally break down and get Adobe Acrobat Pro, it'll be a lot easier to just edit them. But I recommend to all the notaries that ask me, if you're going to be doing this, you don't want to be tagging all of these extra elements. You want to upload your documents ready to sign and notarize and, you know, stamp.
Right. And somebody's asking about, you know, tagging, and we're talking about the process of identifying the spots where the signer or yourself is going to be signing, correct?
Right. Right. So in both DocVerify and SignIX, because I've used them both, it's just a matter of dragging a signature element to the line and dragging the stamp element to, you know, an area on the document. But like everyone else has said, I require my documents a day ahead. I really hate I need to do this right now, because that's when I'm going to get one of those forms that has like a 1/2 inch for a notary stamp, and they just can't be used.
Yeah. So some of the real, the daily issues we may have as a notary doing traditional work don't go away. We still face them. It's just how we face them and when we face them
That's right.
makes the difference. Okay, so for question number 2, there are some technical concerns that I should be prepared for when I'm doing RON that I probably didn't need to worry about when I'm dealing with paper. They could be connectivity, they can be the ID disqualification and why does that happen? It could be screen navigation, it can be for whatever reason it can't be completed. What do you do then? Valerie, since you were the last one I spoke to, could you speak to that?
Sure. So I've run into wild variety of technical issues. I did a trust set for a couple in Malaysia who had like the #1 slowest connection in the universe. And we had them doing the window dance with their phones, and we finally got it done, but it took 2 hours. And of the 2 hours, 1 hour and 50 minutes was trying to get the KBA done. You know, trying to get the identity verification because pictures wouldn't upload. They couldn't load the pages. So you do have that. And in Texas, we're required to fully record the entire process. And with SignIX, when the person uses a cell phone or a tablet, when they leave the Zoom window, it drops the video. And so you can't see them clicking sign. So I have to require people to use a desktop or a laptop with a webcam. And that's, you know, that's a learning curve for a lot of people. I've hopped on at least 3 or 4 times to train somebody how to use Zoom before the appointment so that they would be able to share the screen so that they would be able to do things like that. And you know, there's every now and then there's an issue. Oh my God, what happens when I forgot to put my stamp tag on there, you know, and how do you deal with that? And things that can cause problems with IDs right now are the simple fact that many states have extended the expiration date, but I'm pretty sure that that hasn't moved over to the vendors that do the ID verification. When you get a signer that's 80 years old and they're getting asked about an address they had in 1969, you know, it's memory. So anyway, and I'll let the others talk now.
Bill, would you jump on regarding, you know, ID concerns that come up and how you deal with that and who's paying for all these attempts?
Well, the IDs that on Doc Verify, the only IDs that they can use are a state issued ID, whether it's a driver's license or a state issued ID card. They don't have the option of using a passport. They can't use a foreign driver's license. So you're pretty much limited to, you have to address that up front. You have to say, you know, these are the only kinds that are available. They have to have a social security number because it's going to do a soft credit pull in order to do the knowledge-based assessment. So you have to tell them that up front. There's a list of things that I've learned through trial and error at my expense that you must go through with them before you get to that point. And you as the notary are the one that's paying for those. Those KBA credits on Doc Verify cost $2 a credit. And somebody else was saying before, if you know the person, you can put personally known and then you don't have that $2. But on all the people that you don't know, it's going to be $2 for that credit. If they go through and they fail it the first time, they have an option to take it a second time. And then if they fail it, it will lock them so that they have to come back to me so I can say, okay, now we're going to go for the third time. Each one of those attempts is costing me $2. So you have to budget that into what you're doing. Once you get to that third attempt, if they fail, then it locks them out for 24 to 48 hours, and then you can try again. So that's why when I have them fail, I wait, because sometimes on the screen it will show why they failed, but if they don't take a picture of it or snapshot it, it sometimes can take 10, 20 minutes before Doc Verify notifies me as to what the reason. There's some reasons where, like someone else said, if they're an older client, they might just not have a lot of credit. They might have owned their house for 40 years. They paid for their car cash. They only have a debit card or one credit card, so they don't have a robust credit profile for them to pull from. So then that's when they throw in those weird questions like, which address is associated with you, and it might be none of the above. Well, if they've only got 2 or 3 real questions they can draw together from their credit profile, and they screw one of those up, it locks them out. So it doesn't matter how many times you keep paying that $2. Doc Verify will let you pay that $2 as long as you want to pay it. But once they're done, they're done. There's nothing you can do about it. So.
Thanks, Bill. And since I happen to have you, do you use a specific browser that's most compatible, or any browser works?
Well, Chrome is the one that seems to be the most reliable. I had last week, especially the end of last week and the beginning of this week, my calls were dropping nonstop in the middle of the calls. And I messaged the support, and they suggested a browser called Brave, which I'd never even heard of. It works with them. It didn't stop the dropped calls, but it's another option. It does not, in my experience, and I'm on a Mac, it does not work with Safari. If someone goes in with Safari, I might get their audio, but I usually don't have their video. So I've found that I just try and stick with Chrome, Firefox sometimes, and then this new one called Brave.
Okay. Deshauna, thanks for hanging out with us here. Is there any technical things that you learned, on the job, so to speak, and had to figure out how to deal with that?
Well, I think Bill, he basically took all the words out of my mouth. He did a good job with that. I would say just with Doc Verify, as far as technical capabilities, you're not going to be able to see the signer's signature. You can place the placeholder there, but you're not going to be able to see it until the transaction is complete. And when I say that, I mean when they get the document is the only time they're going to be able to see their signature. So you have to be very strategic as to where you put it, because you as the notary won't be able to see it either. So you want to make sure that, you kind of play around with it to see, okay, am I placing it correctly? Because you don't want to cover up any of the notarial wording or anything. So that's one of the things that I had to learn the hard way, and I've had to, go back and redo the customer's documents for free, because learning where to put those signatures, and my signature and stamp as well. So that's one of the technical issues that I found with using Doc Verify.
Thanks, Deshauna. Cynthia, do you have anything you want to add to that? You have to unmute yourself.
I actually have 2 screens, and I have the same thing that I can't think of his name, but I have a Mac as well. But I also have a Windows system. So when I have actually had problems where you couldn't see the signature, you couldn't see the click, then I would just abandon that session and go to the Windows system. As long as I didn't finish it up on Doc Verify, I didn't have to repay. So, but I haven't had anybody that did not go through. So I haven't had anybody 80, 90 years old or whatever that they weren't able to get verified the first time. But I have had where it was my fault, where I didn't put something in and I had to redo the whole session. So what I do, which, is a little expensive, a little maybe crazy, I print a copy of my docs front and back if I have a full closing, so that to make sure that, I get every signature, every notarization, and I highlight it for myself when I'm going through it with the person, if it's a full closing.
Okay. And just to add on to that, somebody's asking about, the recording process and storage of the record. Cynthia, can you address that?
Well, that's Doc Verify. That's one of the reasons you're paying them all that money. They're supposed to store that for 10 years. That is not your process at all, because as soon as you start doing the actual notarization, you start the recording. So everything is recorded up and in their session. Now, if you ever have to go back and get a copy of it, then that's when you have to contact them. But that is their responsibility. And I've only used DocVerify, so that's the only one I can talk about.
That you have that. Okay. And then DocVerify seems to be the one that most of you are using, although some of you are doing some other things. So how did you decide that which platform? There's maybe 10 of them out there. Some of them only work with signing companies or large clients. Some will work with an independent notary. How did you decide, either by price or by service, or what other method did you come up with? And if I could first hear from Phyllis.
I knew you were going to choose me first, and I'm the only one that's not using the platform.
Okay.
So like I said, I just have a hodgepodge of different services that I use. I've been using Adobe Acrobat Pro. Adobe Acrobat Pro comes with Adobe Sign. So you get up to 150 signings with Adobe Pro. That's the downside about it. So I have to find another e-signing platform to go along with that. So because I'm limited to 150 signings per year, unless I want to purchase another license, and purchasing a license for just 150 signings, it's like $400. So I would not recommend anybody do the Adobe Pro route using Adobe Sign. But there are other e-signing platforms out there if you don't want to have the all-in-one. Now, the all-in-one is more convenient, like the DocVerify and the SignX. But I prefer using an e-signing platform and then pairing it with Zoom and with using my calendar, and also using Vimeo to store my recordings, and also using EVS to do the ID verifications. That just works out better for me. And it's more cost effective for me, because I am right now doing quite a few general notary signings.
Okay, great. Now, Cynthia, you're in Florida. Does Florida tell you that you can only choose amongst certain platforms, or are you open to choose any platform?
Florida is open to choosing any platform that you choose, but what they say is, you know, when you turn in your application, you have to pick a platform. And if you decide you don't like that one, you have 30 days to change it to another one, and you got to let them know in writing. Other than that, they don't care who you use, because they actually have a list of who's qualified. And that's what you have to go with, the list that they have that says that you can use this one, or this one, but you pick which one you choose.
Okay, but you can only be with one at a time. Is that correct? So you can't work with multiple?
No, they have never said you can only be with one at a time. Okay. The wording of the RON, it just says you need to pick one, and you need to let them know if you change, but they didn't say you can't be with more than one. Because I do know one young lady that actually is with 3.
Okay, good.
You know, but they all have to be, because like some people will pick, if they're doing closings, they'll pick the one where you can actually see the documents when they're signing. Someone will pick something else for whatever reason. And then for pricing, because some of them charge you $25 for the first one, and then $10 per notarization, charging you the notary.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, you can have as many as you want, but you've got to have one at least that you have told them that you're going to have.
Okay. Tashana, how about you? Is there a limitation? Can you only do one at a time, or does your state tell you who?
To my knowledge, the state doesn't tell you who, and there is no limitation in Virginia, as long as whatever platform you're using meets the state's requirements. So, you know, and I chose DocVerify. I just did some research, talked to some colleagues. Actually, one of my colleagues, she let me do a test run with her to see, and, and that's what I did before I made my decision, because you can do, all the seminars and get all the information, but until you literally try one for yourself, you're not going to be able to make that, that informed decision until you just leap and just try a platform. If it doesn't work, then switch to another. And that would just be, and that's what I did. I just did the research and did the test run with DocVerify. I like their platform because of their different capabilities. For instance, with DocVerify, the signers, if it's a multi-signer session, they do not have to be in the same location. I did a signing the other day. One guy was here in Virginia with me. The other guy was in California. So it's different capabilities like that that you want to consider when you're deciding to choose a platform.
Okay, fabulous. I did have another question. So let's talk about just fees in general. I'm not asking panelists to disclose what they get paid specifically, but if you could compare it to traditional loan signings, let's say, and or a range so that we have an idea of what's happening there and how you get paid. Bill, can you start us off?
Sure. So are you asking about the fees charged or the fees paid?
No, fees paid. So if we're going to do this work, we're doing it because we want to get paid. And so we've heard a little bit about how we might get charged, you know, startup to sign up. We might get charged fees for identification. We might get charged fees for notarization. But ultimately, we're getting paid by somebody somehow. And so that's, I think people want to know, well, you know, if it takes me 20 minutes to do this signing, let's say, is that going to be reflected in how we're getting paid for, say, a loan signing?
Right. I think that you definitely get advantages to doing it from home like this because you're not paying for paper, you're not paying for toner, you're not paying for gas, you're not paying for your time to drive from here to another signing and then to FedEx and then back home. So it makes up for it. I personally don't mess with anything less than, I'm not going to turn it on for less than $50. And usually I try and go higher than that. A lot of what I do, like I said, I work with a couple of different avenues, but when I work with an estate planning attorney, almost every time they're $150 to $250. So that's kind of where I've decided that I want to be. And so I don't know if you saw me working like kind of with my head over here, because I have 2 monitors as well. And I've got 4 estate plannings to do today. I mean, you can do those numbers. That's pretty good for working from home. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So that's.
And would you say that loan signing work you do through signing services or title are comparable in fees as well?
Well, I personally, I've done some for ServiceLink, and I've kind of been the cleanup guy. When someone hasn't known what they were doing, they've come to me and said, hey, can you help us fix this really quickly? And so I usually can get a pretty good fee with them. My thought on this, and you and I have kind of discussed it, is that the problem that's going to happen is right now we're in high demand, and so we can actually get a higher amount. But once more and more people come into it, you're going to have these signing services that are going to start chasing it to the bottom, and they're going to try and get us to take it for as little as possible. And someone that is going to look at this like this and say, hey, I didn't have to leave the house, and he's willing to do it for 150, I'll do it for 100. And then it's going to be this race to the bottom. So I think that right now it's great. Right now it's really good. But I can see the potential in the future of it going down, just because that's where everyone will go. I mean, you look at all these provisional states that are putting in the right to do it right now, and they're saying, okay, Arizona, you can go ahead and do it now. But once you get these provisional states on board and they're doing it for a while, are they going to want to back off? Are they going to want to say, oh, well, COVID-19 and all the fears around it are gone, so now we're going to take this back away from you? No, they're just going to roll it over, and it's going to become law for that state. And so the more and more people as they come in, it's going to push the prices down. That's why if anyone's listening that hasn't, I would push hard to get in there now, and do it. You got to make hay while the sun shines, I think is the saying my dad used to say. I mean, you have to do what you can right now.
All right, thank you. And would you say, I mean, a very quick amount of time for, you know, it's a few documents versus I just want to address loan signings. We know that we've got prep time for a loan signing where we're printing the documents, we're reviewing the documents for any issues before we can even leave our house to go to the appointment. Then we've got our travel time, our table time, delivering the package. Then we've got QA review time. Then we've got courier time where we're going to go drop it off wherever it is it's got to go. So all of that may run us up to an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how much of that is travel time. How is that comparable to doing a loan signing this way, Bill, versus having to do it the traditional way? Are you still spending around the same amount of time just doing different activities, or is it really a lot faster for you?
No, in my experience with the loan signing stuff, it's not much faster. I mean, it's just a different way of spending your time. I mean, when the documents come in, if you get a 100-page document set, what I personally do is I go to Adobe Pro and I tag all my documents ahead of time. So if it says state of Florida, I need to cross that out and put in Nevada. So I have to go through and do all of those steps. That takes me, you know, 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the docs and how much, you know, how much crossing out I have to do and things like that. Then I have to upload them to the website. And once I get them there, I need to call the signer. I need to say, hey, you're about to get an email from this company called DocVerify. It's going to ask you to do this. You have to walk them through the whole process so that they can get their ID verified. Then while they're doing their ID verification, you're going in and you're tagging all of your documents so that when they actually come into the signing, you're ready to just jump from page to page to page. So you're spending probably another 15 to 30 minutes tagging. And then you get into the actual signing, and if you are lucky, if you are incredibly lucky, it might let you get through the entire transaction without dropping. But it typically it drops, or they can't find the button, and it doesn't matter how many times you say no, go further down the page, all the way down the page, they can't find the button. So there's just all these little elements that all stack on top of each other. And then let's say they blow their ID verification. Well, that adds more time because they got to go back and do it again. So I wouldn't say you're saving any more time. I think it's probably just as time consuming, if sometimes not more. I mean, like someone was saying earlier, I mean, I did a loan signing the other day that took an hour and 15 minutes. And it was because the system dropped out and we couldn't get through. And eventually what I had to do was download Zoom, send them a Zoom link, and go through their documents with them on Zoom so that we could just go back and just bang through all the signatures fast. So I didn't have to spend time explaining stuff while I was active.
Got it. Valerie, a question that I see coming up in the chat room is if you're not doing loan signings, you're doing some general work, where are these customers coming from?
So my website and my Google page and my Facebook page all indicate that I'm an online notary, and that's where it's coming from. Most of my work from California is coming from one lawyer that I helped initially at the very beginning, and he passed my name onto a listserv in the Bay Area. And I've gotten 6 or 7 different lawyers, and I think I've helped probably 20 different clients get their trust packages done. General notary work, it is the same kind of marketing as you would do for paper general, in-person notary work. I don't, I don't see it as any kind of different. I did one of the rare posts I ever make on my personal Facebook page was I told everyone I was an online notary if they needed any help. You have to be willing to tell people what you're doing, no matter how you're doing it. And so that's where my work comes from.
All right. And for any one of the panelists, would you tell me or tell our audience today, are you using a journal outside of that platform? or using, is it electronic, like Notary Act, or are you just relying on what's recorded with the platform?
Well, the one that SignIX keeps doesn't have quite enough information, so I have to convert the PDF to something else so I can have all my elements in it, which is, it's frustrating. But one of the things I will tell you about that company is they're very responsive to requests. So I have made a request to be able to get the journal in a CSV format. But in Texas, we do have to keep a journal electronic or however. And one of the things I wanted to say about fees, Texas, believe it or not, has a definite fee that can be charged for an online notarization, whereas they don't have that for mobile notaries. It's like you can charge your $6 notarization fee and then whatever you and your client agree on as far as the rest of your fees. So we can charge $31 per notarized document, and we can add $1 per additional signature. The math is too complicated, so it's $31. But if I get 12 documents, I'm not charging them $31 a document because it's not costing me more than $60.
Right.
So I usually end up charging $20 a document. And it works out like Bill said. I can sit here for 20 minutes and earn $200 without printing a piece of paper, and I've spent maybe 20 minutes getting the documents uploaded and all of that. So, but again, there's a lot of research that needs to be done. And I started with DocVerify, and I found it a very complicated system and a very expensive system. And then I moved to SignIX, and I found that it has its quirks, but I find it's a lot easier for me to use. And you just need to be able to do the, what am I thinking? Like SignIX has a little thing every Tuesday that you can watch a little 1-hour webinar on how it works. And DocVerify's got a lot of videos in their help section. And I think without having an account, you can still access those to see how that works. But honestly, it is really up to the notary. And then most of the signing services will train you if they want you to do work for them through their association to a platform.
Thank you, Valerie. As I see we're getting probably in about the last 10 minutes or so, I'd like to open up for more of a general Q&A where you're not restricted to just put it in the chat. If you have a question specifically for one of our panelists today, then if you would raise your hand, and if you don't remember how to do that, go to the participants page, and over in the middle of it, it'll say raise hand, and you'll need to click on that so we can see you have a question that you want to ask directly. Bill?
Laura, we have several questions that I've been gathering through the chat window. Do you mind if we just kick in?
Let's do that.
They've been
That's
so
great.
patient with these.
Okay.
Mike Hauer says, when doing a loan package with the AKA signature form where it requires multiple signatures, how does that look on a remote online notarization platform? Can any panelists speak to that?
I know from my experience, it doesn't look like you can, on DocVerify, you can only adopt that one signature. That one signature is what you get. You cannot go in there and do all of those alternate signatures. You can't go in there and, if you have someone that wants it to say comma trustee, comma trust maker, comma assignor, it doesn't happen. You get what you get. So, and I tell my attorneys that up front. I haven't had it come up with the loan signing yet where they had to write all the different variations of their name, but I don't know what would it matter really. I mean, it would all be computer written. So
All right, great. Next one. This was for Deshauna from Michelle. She said, I'm not quite understanding Deshauna correctly. Do we not actually see the signature? So what are we witnessing? And this is when Deshauna was explaining how you can't really see where to place your signature and you have to kind of tinker with it and move it around a little bit to get it right.
So with DocVerify, they create their signature before they connect with you on the platform. So when I say that, meaning we have a box on the platform and it'll say, I think it's signer signature, I think is what it says. So you place it where their signature would go. And then they're going to, on their end, they're going to click it. Wherever you place it is where that signature is going to go. So that's what I'm saying. You have to be strategic, because what happens is somewhere, I guess, in their back office, the signature is there, but you nor the customer is going to see that until that customer receives that document back. Does that mean? I hope that answers the question. But wherever you put that placeholder is where that signature is going to apply. And you won't know if you've covered up some wording or if you placed it exactly where it needs to go until that customer receives it. And then after the transaction is over, you as a notary can see the document as well. So you'll be able to go back and say, oh, maybe I should have put it over to the right a little bit more, over to the left, or maybe tried to center it a little bit better.
Gotcha. Interesting. So as a follow-up, Shelby asked, for those placement exercises, can we do mock signatures and practice on the platforms?
Again, I was able to practice with a colleague, but just keep in mind that every time you crank up that DocVerify platform, whether you're doing a test transaction or not, it costs you credits. So if you're willing to, or you or someone else are willing to just play around with those credits, because it does cost you, like they say, that $2, just to have a little, test transaction. And actually, I was able to do that with an attorney as well. She, wanted to see how the platform worked for her customers, for her people. And so we went through, when she worked with me and I worked with her, we were able to figure some things out together. And I was willing to use up those credits for my own training so that I can service, her clients the way that she wanted them to be serviced.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a worthy investment for sure.
Absolutely.
As a follow-up to both kind of what you guys are talking about, and Bill, when you brought up the signature is the way that it is, Michelle has a follow-up question. How do you do these signings with powers of attorney, when there's an attorney in fact, when there's an attorney in fact, how does the signature work that way?
I can answer that pretty much. Again, like Bill said, they're just look like, font written names. And like he said, it's really hard to offer that. You can only have one signature, even in my platform, and the only option you would have is to tack on that part after the last name when you're entering the user information, the signer information, but I wouldn't recommend it. Like he said, I just let everyone know it's just the name. And I wanted to address the dragging and dropping part. So if you've ever designed anything graphically, like a flyer or anything, and trying to position your images where you want them, it's very similar to that. Very, very similar. You have sizing and you have all of that. So it's just an exercise in how well you can place any kind of element on a page.
Wonderful. Oh, sorry, Laura.
I was going to say, thanks, Valerie. And I just want to mention real quick that, Ron is not the answer for everybody or for every kind of document, for everything. And there are going to be so many reasons why a signer cannot use this path. And they are going to need a traditional notary. And that's just how it's going to be. So I just want you, as you're hearing, some of the things we have to consider when we're doing this, is that although Ron is a new, exciting thing, new toy out there for us to work with, and another way for us to do the work for those that it's appropriate, there is a big portion of population that are never going to be able to use this. And we need to make sure we maintain that level of our business and those skills as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last one's from Jen here. Once you get Ron's certification for your state, can you do work in any state? And I think we can clarify the two different ways to interpret this question, right?
Yeah.
So to clarify, Laura, why don't you clarify?
Yeah, the one part.
Yeah, the one part.
Depends on your state law. Some states have said your signer must physically be in your own state. And you may do remote notarization for people within your state. They have to say they're there. Other states have allowed, like Nevada is one, where they said you could do your state, you could take care of people in any of the other 49 states. And some have also said, and you can do foreign countries as well. All right, so you can do all three layers. So it depends on what your state RON laws are or what your emergency order said. So that's that part of it.
And the other way to interpret that is if you get RON certified in, say, Florida, does that mean that you can just hop in your Winnebago and travel the country doing remote online notarizations? And I have not heard of that law yet, but I bought Vagabond Notary 4 years ago, so I could do that. So if that happens, you'll be the first to know.
The notary always
I know you cannot.
Well, I actually asked the state. I actually asked the state of Florida something very similar to that because I have someone that's over in Colombia that actually needs something notarized, and they are U.S. citizens. And what the state actually says, that's fine. I can actually notarize for them, but they have to have U.S. ID, government issued U.S. ID, and they have to be able to pass that verification thing. So they could be anywhere as long as they have that ID. And as far as you traveling, how would anybody know as a notary where you're at?
Well, if you want a valid notarization, you better be in your state that you're commissioned in.
Well, you need to be in Florida.
Right.
I'm in Florida.
I think the part of the question we were trying to address right now wasn't we did the part about where the signer can be anywhere, but the notary cannot be anywhere.
No, the notary has to be in Florida. The state actually said that. You have to be physically in Florida. If you're at the Florida-Georgia line, you better step over the Florida side and do that notarization.
Florida. Exactly.
Well, because another thing is Doc Verify and the various things, they do have an address thing as to where you're located.
Yeah. The IP
they do
address.
have it.
IP address, yeah.
Yes, and it shows where you're located at the time you did that notarization.
There you go.
I wanted to address certification. As far as I know, none of the states that have online commissions have a certification. There is currently no certification that I know of. You get an online commission from your Secretary of State or whatever your governing body is. And then you're pretty much, if it's like Texas, you're just dumped right out and said, okay, go. There's not a lot of training involved for Texas and many other states. We can notarize anyone, anywhere, as long as they're a U.S. citizen. And in the current platform I use, I can use a passport as well. But just keep in mind that with both Doc Verify and SignIX and probably most other platforms, you are supposed to view that ID. You know, Doc Verify, they hold it up to the camera. SignIX will display a picture of it, the picture that they took. And you're still the last word on whether or not you're going to accept it to do an online notarization. If you look at that picture and you look at that face in your Zoom and they look like father and son, except for the Arizona driver's licenses, which can be 40 years old, you do have the option of not doing it.
Yes. Yeah, I've read all of the emergency orders and legislation for all the different states, and they almost all say the same thing, that ultimately if the notary does not agree, they can stop the signing if they don't believe that this person has been identified. We have come to the end. Bill and I both knew there was just so much information to cover, and so we needed to limit the focus on what we would try to address today. And we may be looking at a Ron Part 2, where we can focus on marketing and on some other aspects of doing this. We just couldn't fit it today. One, I want to thank all my panelists who joined us this morning and took time out of their day to share about what they've been doing and how they're successfully implementing Ron in their state. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. There are 2 announcements that I'd like to make for you. Many of you have joined the e-meetup calls because it's been an extension of something I already do through the LBP, which is the Video Replay Library. And if you don't know what that is, it's really around general work. And I don't like that term. It's really around specialty work. And just as NSAs are specialists in loan signings, I am a specialist in trust signings, or I am a specialist in handling certain environments like jails and hospitals. If you want to get into more of that, then just know that there is a resource available to you, and you can go to notarycoach.com/LBP and learn more about that. The other announcement I want to make is that there's going to be a new skill builder coming out, and that is going to be on Saturday, May 16th at 9 a.m., and it is about apostille work. And so if you want to know more about that or register for that, it's free. Go to notarycoach.com/apostille. Okay, and I think Bill put it in the chat window so you can see what that link is. All right, so those were my two. Bill, do you have anything else before we wrap this up?
You know, I don't have a whole lot, but I'll just offer this, guys. You can see this is not a real clear-cut, crystal clear methodology on how to do this. It is, anytime you're on the cutting edge of anything, there's going to be confusion. And I honor everybody who's embraced this and jumped in and tried to learn this, and then also took time out to share that journey with us. So thank you for that. And if you decide to take Ron on, if that's going to be part of your business, just know that this really does, in some ways, even the playing field. And there's ways using search engine optimization and very strategic marketing and relationship building and advertising techniques that you can apply and really compete with some of the big dogs too. You are on the cutting edge of this. So thank you for being here. And Laura, thank you for bringing another incredible idea to our community.
You're all welcome, and I look forward to the next time. Be safe.
All right, see you later.
Bye.